This is truly the big one. The playoff final, Luton against Coventry. Some, not mentioning names, didn't want this final. Some of us did. Some of us loved the narrative a lot. Two very good sides for very different reasons. Mark Robinson has been outstanding at Coventry, and we were literally just saying off camera, both these managers probably will end up getting Premier League jobs, even if they don't come up to the Premier League now, somewhere down the line. Let's start with Luton first.
Yeah.
They have maybe the unpopular shout. Certainly for Kwaku, he wanted Sunderland and Middlesbrough.
no. Misrepresented my position.
What are you against Luton, mate? Leave Luton alone.
I like the story.
Stephen, you want Luton here?
No, it's just I like the idea of new stories and new narrative once again, and the idea of Luton in the Premier League. I know I don't mean to patronise, but their stadium is unbelievably charming, and they are a club obviously massively punching above their weight, and I mean that as the greatest compliment as a Manchester City fan, because I'm aware I'm the exact opposite end of the scale when it comes as a fan, when it comes to finances and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Luton, everything they've done, and the story of Rob Edwards as well, it's just, he's come from their bitter rivals, obviously Watford, though he was sacked after the customary 10 games or something. I don't know what it was, but it's a very Watford thing to do. And it could have been a massive blow when they lost Nathan Jones to Southampton, but the way that they've turned it round, and it's just been an incredible story. Like, third in the league, in the Championship, it's so impressive. And look, you could say that they deserve to go up. They are currently third. They were third, into the playoffs, and the football that they play is aggressive. They get the most out of their players. A lot of smart signings, not superstars, but just smart signings where every player is hardworking, is physical, is aggressive, and they're all really good characters. So everything about Luton is about extracting every last ounce of talent that they've got, and you've got to admire that. Even if they aren't maybe the most technical team or the most exciting team, they are a team that are where they are built on dedication and hard work, and that's admirable.
Yeah, 100%. And like you mentioned there, Rob Edwards deserves a lot of credit, because there's a sense that he's finishing off the job that Nathan Jones started, but he's taken them to a different level. And narratively, you can compare it to maybe Potter and De Zerbi, but De Zerbi came in and changed the formation, whereas Rob Edwards has kept with the three at the back, whether it's a 3-5-2 or 3-4-2-1. It's a similar variation to what Nathan Jones did. But they're super aggressive, and both of these teams, it's an interesting matchup because they both utilise target men in different ways. And Carlton Morris has got to 20 goals this season, and he's a huge reason why they're successful, and they use their wide areas very, very well. So Luton, despite the fact that Nubay doesn't think that I want to see them in the Premier League, I feel like they deserve...
That was not my opinion.
Mate, you shouldn't just hate Luton so much. What's going on?
They deserve it, and Rob Edwards has done a great job for himself PR-wise, because it wasn't great when he left Forest Green. There was a lot of controversy in terms of him going to Watford, but the fact that he could potentially get Watford's bitter rivals into the Premier League is great for himself, and he's somebody that I think is a Premier League manager, and if it doesn't go his way on the weekend in terms of getting his team to the Premier League, then I'm sure there's going to be a host of clubs sniffing around him, because he's a very good manager.
And then the opposite dugout, I was very lucky to go and watch Coventry as part of my job for Gillette. And when I watched them, I was completely gripped by the football they played, because at this point I'd watched quite a few teams in League One, League Two, Championship, but they were by far the most impressive. Mainly because Mark Robins has this brilliant ability to change things in game, and it's quite rare at that level, with no disrespect to any teams or managers there, because of the lack of sort of squad depth. They can't rotate as much, but he's happy to put players in awkward situations, and he's taken them from League 2 to potentially the Premier League in 5 years, with a max cost of around 1.3 million per player in his squad. Total squad cost less than 5 million. I think, like, pound for pound, you would say that is an absolutely monstrous job.
Against the backdrop of financial turmoil, and against the backdrop of potentially being evicted from their stadium and the investment coming in, and he's really steadied the ship there, and he knows the club very well. He's been there for a very long time, especially in modern football. Being at a club for, no, it's been 2 stints, but roughly 6 years is very impressive. And like you say, the multiple promotions is difficult to do in this day and age, and they play good football as well. They play decent football, and they have the kind of essence of a Premier League side. Whether they can get the job done against Luton is going to be tough, because Luton are well versed in terms of player football, especially in the Championship. But out of these two sides, if I had a preference in terms of who I'd like to see go up, it'd probably be Coventry, just because
Why do you hate Luton, man?
I don't have nothing against Luton. I just think, it's been 20 years since Coventry were last in the Premier League. They're a Premier League side. In my mind, well, go watch Premier League years. Coventry is a side that you see floating around there, and it would be nice to see him back in the Premier League, especially, like I said, against the backdrop of all that financial difficulty.
Yeah, I'm probably about a decade older than you used to, and literally, sadly, but I've got the grey hairs to prove it. But I remember Coventry when I was a kid.
They were the original Sky Blues in the Premier League.
Exactly. Yeah. When I was collecting my sticker books, Coventry were always there with Peter Runlove and Darren Huckabee and all that stuff. So I would love that nostalgia blast, and I'm sure the Rico would love it as well, because it absolutely is a Premier League level stadium. So we'll see.
They've had a lot of players linked to Premier League teams as well. My worry is if they don't make it, a few of those players will leave. But Mark Robbins is a magician with not a lot of cash in his pocket. The last 4 matches between the two sides in the Championship, Coventry haven't won a single one. It's been 1-1, 1-1, 1-0 Luton and 5-0 Luton. Stephen, I'm going to come to you first. Who's going to the Premier League? Who's getting the big bucks?
Ultimately, I think this is probably going to be Coventry's. I think that massive Wembley pitch will really play into their hands. Their style seems to suit it, and Victor Gyökeres, I've butchered his name there, sorry mate. He's got so much pace, of course, in behind. He's such a physical player, and I know you're a big fan of his too, Nabeed. But I think he'll just suit that occasion in that stadium.
Yeah, you've right to pick out Gyökeres there. Again, I'll probably butcher his pronunciation. Like, weighty, big Nordic strikers are in fashion at the moment. You know that from Erling Haaland firsthand. Obviously, Rasmus Højlund's had a kind of breakout season for Atlanta, and I think that's going to be the difference, hopefully, for somebody who's rooting for Coventry in this game. And I think they're just going to have a little bit too much guile for Luton. But it's going to be a good game, and it's maybe not the game that people expected heading into these playoffs, but it's the game that we've got. And it's two teams that have not, well, in Coventry's case, haven't been in the Premier League for 20 years, and Luton's case have never been in the Premier League. So roll on the weekend, and fingers crossed Coventry win. I'm going for a 2-1 Coventry win.
Narratives galore. I just cannot see past Coventry. I want a team that's going to come to the Premier League and try and play sexy, quote-unquote sexy football. So I'm going to go Coventry 3-1.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.